If you are a United States citizen, whether naturalized or born here, if you hold a green card, if you are waiting for your immigration case to be approved, or if you have family members going through the system right now, this video is for you. There is a very good chance you have seen headlines recently that made your heart sink. Words like bans expanded, and dual citizens affected have been circulating online. And I know that for many of you, these phrases can feel deeply unsettling. Perhaps you have worked for years, even decades, to build your life here. Perhaps you became a citizen and still hold citizenship in your birth country. Perhaps your children or your parents have connections to more than one nation. When you see alarming headlines, it is natural to feel afraid. But I want to tell you something important right at the start. My goal today is not to scare you. My goal is the opposite. I am here to explain things calmly, to separate the facts from the fear, and to help you understand what is actually happening, who is actually affected, and why most of you watching this video right now have nothing to worry about. My name is Michael, and I have been following immigration news closely for many years. I create these videos because I believe everyone deserves to understand the truth, without having to wade through panic and confusion. So let us take this journey together, slowly and carefully, and by the end of this video, I hope you will feel informed, prepared, and most importantly, at peace. Before we continue, I need to share something important with you. I am not an immigration attorney. I am not a government official. I do not work for USCIS or any federal agency. What I share in this video is educational information only, based on publicly available news and official sources. I explain complex topics in simple terms so that you can understand them. But this is not legal advice. If you have a specific situation that concerns you, please speak with a qualified immigration lawyer who can review your individual case. My role here is simply to be your guide through confusing headlines. Nothing more and nothing less. Now let us talk about what is actually happening with this executive order and why the phrase dual citizens has been appearing in so many headlines recently. There has been news about executive actions that expand certain restrictions, particularly related to travel, security screening, and entry into the United States. These actions build upon previous policies and introduce new layers of review for individuals coming from specific countries or those who hold citizenship in nations that the government has identified as posing potential security concerns. The word ban is used frequently in headlines because it grabs attention, but in most cases, these are not absolute bans that apply to everyone. They are enhanced vetting procedures, additional screening requirements, and in some limited cases, restrictions on entry for very specific categories of individuals. Here is where dual citizenship comes into the conversation. Some of these policies consider not only where a person is traveling from, but also what other citizenships they may hold. For example, if someone is a citizen of the United States, but also holds citizenship in a country that is on a restricted list, there may be additional questions or reviews. When they travel internationally, this does not mean that their U.S. citizenship is in danger. It does not mean they will be denied entry to their own country. It means that in certain narrow circumstances, there may be extra steps involved. I want you to take a breath here, because I know this can sound frightening, but please understand that holding dual citizenship is completely legal in the United States. Millions of Americans hold citizenship in more than one country, and this has been the case for generations. The government does not punish people simply for having dual citizenship. Let me be very clear about who these expanded policies apply to. In general, they are focused on individuals who hold citizenship in countries that are specifically named in the executive order. These are typically nations where the government has determined there are significant security concerns, often related to ongoing conflicts, lack of reliable information sharing, or other factors. If you are a dual citizen of the United States and a country like Canada, the United Kingdom, France, Germany, Japan, or most other nations around the world, these policies almost certainly do not apply to you. The restrictions are narrow and targeted, not broad and sweeping. For the vast majority of dual citizens in America, life continues exactly as it has before. Now let me address who is genuinely not affected by these changes, because I think this is where a lot of unnecessary fear comes from. If you are a naturalized U.S. citizen who was born in Mexico, the Philippines, India, China, Vietnam, the Dominican Republic, or dozens of other countries, and you have not held citizenship in any of the specifically restricted nations, These executive orders do not change your status in any way. Your citizenship remains exactly as secure as it was yesterday. If you are a green card holder from most countries around the world, your permanent residency is not affected by these dual citizenship provisions. If you are waiting for your visa or green card to be approved, these headlines about dual citizens and expanded bans do not create new obstacles for you, unless your case specifically involves one of the named countries. And even then, it typically means additional processing time, rather than automatic denial. There are many myths circulating right now, and I want to address some of the most common ones. The first myth is that the government is revoking citizenship from dual citizens. This is not true. Citizenship revocation, which is called denaturalization, is an extremely rare legal process that requires a federal court case, substantial evidence of fraud or serious crimes, and years of legal proceedings. It cannot happen simply because someone holds dual citizenship. The second myth is that dual citizens will be stopped at the airport and detained. For the overwhelming majority of dual citizens, travel continues normally. If you are a U.S. citizen returning home, you have the right to enter your own country. There may be additional questions in rare cases involving specific restricted countries, but you are not going to be locked up simply for having a second passport. The third myth is that green card holders with dual citizenship are being deported. Again, this is not how the system works. Deportation requires legal proceedings, and simply holding citizenship in another country is not grounds for removal from the United States. I want to share some realistic examples to help you understand the difference between rare situations and everyday life. Consider Maria, who was born in the Philippines, became a naturalized U.S. citizen 20 years ago, and still technically holds Filipino citizenship. Nothing about these executive orders affects Maria. She can travel, work, and live her life exactly as before. Now consider Ahmed, who is a U.S. citizen, but also holds citizenship in a country that appears on the restricted list. Ahmed may experience additional questions when returning from international travel, and he might need to carry extra documentation. This is an inconvenience, not a threat to his citizenship. He remains a U.S. citizen with all the rights that come with that status. These are very different situations, and it is important not to conflate the experiences of a small number of people with the reality for millions of others. Let me take a moment to explain some important distinctions that often get confused in news coverage. First, there is a significant difference between naturalized citizens and citizens by birth. Some people worry that naturalized citizens have fewer protections, but this is largely a misconception. Once you become a U.S. citizen through naturalization, you have almost all the same rights as someone born here. The only differences are very narrow, such as eligibility for the presidency. Your citizenship is not second class, and it cannot be taken away without an extensive legal process involving courts and evidence. Second, there is a difference between honest mistakes and intentional fraud. If you made a minor error on your naturalization application years ago, this does not put you at risk of losing your citizenship. Denaturalization cases focus on serious willful fraud, such as concealing a criminal history or lying about identity. Typos and forgotten details are not the same thing. Third, there is a difference between processing delays and actual denials. Many people interpret slow responses from USCIS as a sign that something is wrong. In most cases, delays are simply the result of backlogs and limited resources, not targeted scrutiny of your case. The issue of dual citizenship and loyalty is something that comes up frequently, so let me address it directly. The United States has never required its citizens to renounce other citizenships. While the naturalization oath includes language about renouncing allegiances, the practical reality is that the U.S. government allows dual citizenship and does not actively enforce renunciation of other nationalities. Millions of Americans maintain citizenship in their birth countries for practical reasons such as inheritance rights, property ownership, or family connections. This is normal and accepted. The executive orders we are discussing do not change this fundamental aspect of American law. Holding dual citizenship does not make you suspect. It does not make you less American. It simply reflects the complex realities of a world where people have connections to more than one nation. Take a deep breath with me here. I know we have covered a lot of information, and some of it may still feel overwhelming. But I want you to notice something important. Throughout this explanation, I have repeatedly emphasized how rare the serious situations are. The legal system in the United States is designed with protections, processes, and safeguards. Nothing happens instantly. Nothing happens without evidence. Nothing happens without opportunities to respond and defend yourself. The frightening headlines you see are designed to get clicks and views. The reality is almost always more measured and more manageable than the headlines suggest. Now let me share some practical guidance for how you should respond to this news. If you are a dual citizen, the first thing you should do is simply stay informed. Follow reliable news sources, not social media rumors. Understand which countries are actually named in any restrictions. And honestly, assess whether your situation falls into that very narrow category. If it does not, which is the case for most of you, then you can set aside your worry and continue with your life. If you are planning international travel and you hold citizenship in a restricted country, consider consulting with an immigration attorney before your trip. They can advise you on what documentation to carry and what to expect. This is a precautionary step, not an emergency measure. What you should not do is panic. You should not make hasty decisions about renouncing citizenship, canceling travel, or upending your life based on headlines you read online. You should not assume that every piece of news applies to your specific situation. You should not let fear drive you to spend money on unnecessary legal consultations or take actions that could actually complicate your immigration status. Most importantly, you should not lose sleep over scenarios that have an extremely low probability of ever affecting you. Staying prepared means keeping your important documents organized and accessible. Make sure you have copies of your naturalization certificate, your passport, your green card, if applicable, and any other immigration documents. Keep records of your travel history and your address history. These are good practices regardless of any executive orders, simply because having organized documentation makes everything easier. If you ever do need to interact with immigration authorities or consult with a lawyer, let me provide some context about the broader immigration landscape right now. Because understanding the bigger picture can help reduce anxiety. USC is currently dealing with significant backlogs across many categories. Processing times for green cards, work permits, citizenship applications, and family-based petitions are longer than many of us would like. If you are waiting for a response on your case, and you have not heard anything for months, this is unfortunately normal in the current environment. It does not mean there is a problem with your specific application. It means the system is overwhelmed and moving slowly for almost everyone. Visa bulletin movements continue to be gradual for many countries, and interview scheduling remains inconsistent. Depending on the specific embassy or USCIS office handling your case, travel restrictions have eased considerably since the pandemic years. But some delays and complications persist. All of this is to say that waiting is a shared experience right now. If you are feeling frustrated or anxious about the pace of your immigration journey, you are not alone. Millions of people are in the same boat, checking their mailboxes every day, refreshing their case status online, and hoping for good news. I want to take a moment to acknowledge the emotional weight that many of you carry. The immigration process is not just a bureaucratic exercise. It is deeply personal. It involves your family, your future, your sense of belonging, and your dreams for yourself and the people you love. When you see headlines about bans and restrictions, it can trigger fears that go far beyond the specific policy being discussed. It can make you question your place in this country, your safety, and your plans. I understand this, and I want you to know that these feelings are valid. You are not overreacting by feeling stressed or worried. But I also want you to know that most of the time, the fears generated by headlines are much larger than the actual risks you face. The immigration system in the United States, for all its flaws and frustrations, operates according to laws, regulations, and procedures. Things do not happen randomly. Decisions are made by officers following guidelines. And there are processes for appeal and review when things go wrong. The system is slow, sometimes painfully so. But that slowness also provides protection. It means that changes take time to implement, that there are opportunities for courts to review policies, and that individual cases receive attention, even when it does not feel that way. Let me summarize what we have covered today. An executive order has introduced expanded vetting and restrictions that in some specific circumstances consider dual citizenship as a factor. These policies primarily affect individuals with citizenship in a small number of specifically named countries. The vast majority of dual citizens in the United States are completely unaffected by these changes. Your citizenship is not at risk. Simply because you hold dual citizenship, denaturalization is a rare, lengthy legal process that requires evidence of serious fraud. Green card holders are not being targeted for deportation based on dual citizenship alone, and the headlines you see online often exaggerate the scope and impact of these policies to generate fear and engagement. The truth is that the American immigration system, while imperfect, is built on foundations that include due process, legal protections, and structured procedures. Changes happen gradually, not overnight. Courts and advocacy organizations monitor government actions and challenge overreach. Individual cases are decided based on evidence and law, not arbitrary whims. You have rights, and those rights do not disappear because of an executive order. Understanding this can help you replace fear with informed confidence. What I encourage you to do going forward is to stay aware without becoming obsessed. Check reliable sources periodically, but do not spend hours scrolling through alarming posts on social media. If you have genuine concerns about your specific situation, consult with a qualified immigration attorney who can give you personalized advice. Otherwise, focus on living your life, taking care of your family, and trusting that the vast majority of people in your situation will be completely fine. I truly appreciate you taking the time to watch this video and to seek out calm, clear information rather than giving into panic. If you found this helpful, I would be grateful if you would consider staying with this channel for future updates. I try to cover immigration news in this same measured, supportive way because I believe that everyone going through this process deserves to understand what is happening without being frightened unnecessarily. If you have questions or experiences you would like to share, please feel free to leave a comment below. I read as many as I can, and your perspectives help me understand what topics matter most to you. Thank you for being here today. Thank you for your patience with a long and detailed explanation. And most importantly, thank you for trusting me to guide you through confusing times. You are going to be okay. The system is not perfect, but it is also not the chaotic, dangerous force that some headlines suggest. Stay informed, stay prepared, and above all, stay calm. I will see you in the next video. Take care of yourself and your loved ones.